Hello, and welcome back to another great episode of hashtag Screw the W2. And my guest is actually joining us a number of time zones away in the island of Hawaii. With that, Lane, welcome to the show.
Hey, aloha, John, and everybody. Let's screw the W2. Yeah.
Agreed. So, yeah, it started off as a hashtag and then it's kind of become a movement since then. So, but now, Lane, for those not familiar with you, obviously I know you're a large, investor, apartment investor, fellow podcaster, etc. But can you take us back in time, if you will? What was your last or previous W-2 job and what was like an average day like for you?
Yeah, my last job, I mean, I was an engineer. I went to school for
Okay.
engineering. And then the last job I was working for the government. This is part of my step down from private to different. Actually, I think I actually got all the government agencies, state, federal,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and city too, and private. So I got all the badges.
All
But
right.
my last one was, yeah, with the government, and I just did very little. I can remember one of the days I was there, I had to like I would just screw off kind of the whole day. Like I would bring my electric scooter into work and then I would like use it to go to the gym in the morning. But then I had been giving this one task to go and inventory all the fire safety exit signs in this parking facility that we had.
Oh, wow.
And like here I am spinning around, like using my scooter to expedite, you know, this, this project that I have so I can go screw off for the rest of the day.
Nice.
Um, that was the last kind of substantial task I did. Uh,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So now with that, Lane, and maybe this came with your last government job, or maybe it was on the state level or private level, whatnot. But what was like, is there one moment that sticks out in your mind of I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, or I can't see myself doing this till I'm 65, or what was that one moment for you?
I mean, it came early, like more on my private sector days. Like that
Okay.
was when the pain point was pretty high, and it was just the people were pretty toxic, and I had started my real estate rental portfolio prior to that,
Okay.
and like I was making more money than my boss's boss, and like to get the lip from them saying like, Lane, maybe when you get into your 30s, you'll understand about finances on these projects. And I'm like, that's bull, right? Because I know more. Like you can't get your personal finances straight,
Yeah.
right? I got more money than you at home.
Hmm.
Don't talk to me about finances. I understand this stuff, right? Just because I don't have white hairs. And, like one day in particular, I started working as a construction supervisor, had a crew. I had a young crew. And then, I moved out of that job more into the office and later on, learned that one of the employees I had, one of the dudes on my crew, he died in an accident at work.
Jeez.
And then like, yeah, my my boss and my boss, like they're kind of like, oh yeah, that's just another day. It's like they didn't really care. And like, I knew this dude, and we would
Wow.
travel around for work all the time, and like, pretty much be out there with the crew 90% of the time. And they get to go home maybe for a few hours on Saturday and they hit the road back out to the job site. And that was kind of the life. And I was like, it kind of
Wow.
put things in perspective. Number one, like, these jerks at work, they don't really care. It's just all a
Hmm.
number.
Yeah.
And then, I think I started to realize that, in the corporate world, the middle management level that, kind of I worked for and I would eventually get into pretty quickly, like people aren't there because they want to be. They're there because they have to.
Yep.
and and they're not there because they have like amazing people skills or leadership and magnetic
Mhm.
personalities that make each other better. If they're those people, they would go off to more senior management roles, and you don't see them anymore. So you end up working for these guys who are in their 40s and 50s and worse 60s in these middle management roles, then they're subpar talent and leadership skills, and they're not there because they need to be. They want to be. They're there because they need the money.
Yep.
And unfortunately, as a younger guy, like you got to work for them. And even if you're an older guy, you got to kind of work alongside them or even work
Mhm.
for some of more of those guys. And I was just like, man, this the system is hard, I think, for, people who, you have, even if you're in a great Fortune 500 company, you may not work directly for one of those, those people who get it. You're working
Yeah.
for people who are stuck there.
Agreed. Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned the unfortunate story with your coworker, and I know there's that meme of if you die at your job, or your boss is going to have the job opening listed before your obituary. And I think you kind of had a real life experience that's unfortunately very true.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, after that, I got out of that private sector
Right.
gig, where you made 10, 20% more than that average because I didn't need it. I had all these rental properties. And then
Mhm.
that's when I kind of stepped down to much better quality of life, more cruise job within the
Okay.
government sectors after that.
Gotcha. So now, Lane, you had mentioned at this time, making that shift, and you already started your, rental portfolio, started getting some more, passive income, like you always say, simple passive cash flow. But what were the, next steps you took to get to the point of, hey, I now have a passive income stream or streams enough that I can completely leave my W-2 job?
Yeah, I mean, so I graduated in 2007, bought my first rental in '09.
Okay.
And then around 2015, I had 11 of those little turnkey rentals people will start with. They're
Sure.
kind of a real pain. They're not scalable. So at that point, I kind of switched to more syndications and private placements.
Okay.
Um, but like, at that point, just take that data point at 2015 with 11 rentals, maybe had about a few $1,000s of passive income coming in after expenses and CapEx.
Sure.
And it's not enough to, that was maybe a third of my salary, I'm
Okay.
guessing back then. But it was the light was at the end of the tunnel, and that was kind of my early 30s, I think, at that point for me. Um, and everybody knows like once you get up to about $2 million net worth, things really skyrocket
Yeah.
from there. Um, but yeah, like that's I think that like the point I probably would have stayed in that movement, especially because like I fixed the pain point. The pain point was like, working for bad people and,
Hmm.
maybe call it as simply as going from private to government or government agency, a lot better quality of life at that point.
Hmm.
And I probably could have cruised there for the rest of my life. I mean, I like the people I worked for, like people who work in the government. Some people are like not very good, but a lot
Yeah.
of people there, what I realize are there because they're not the primary source of their family's income.
Hmm.
And they're there because they want to be. And, it was just a good culture that I worked at where I was there. Like I like the people. And I talk a lot about like when you're in any company or you own your business, like there's this triangle of, you like your boss, you like the people that work under you or work for you, and then or your people you're working around, your peers, your coworkers, and then you like the work, right?
Hmm.
You can have as long as you have one or two of those trifecta, you'll be okay. And at
Hmm.
that point, the second half of my career, I like the people. I didn't like what I did at all. It was kind of mind numbing. I mean, who really likes, as an engineer, who really likes to work with, things and computer screens, right? We don't work with
Sure.
people, right? I think that's why a lot
Right.
of doctors enjoy their work because they help people and they get that feedback loop where, engineers, nobody cares about us. Nobody's going to take thank you for being a great engineer, like,
Yeah.
but I had like two and a half of those things, I feel like. So I was kind of good. And, I was perfectly fine being, I drove the Mercedes when everybody drove Toyotas to work. I kind of had I worked maybe a few hours a week, doing actual real substantial work. Um, it's a good life. Like that's boring life. Boring job is for some people a good job.
Hmm.
My only thing was like, because I was, syndicating properties on the side, right?
Right.
And then around 2018, it just got a little irresponsible, taking all of these people's money and then like still working a day job that I had to go to and be babysat or go to adult daycare all day long. It just got irresponsible. So that's why I
Sure.
quit. But if I
Okay.
didn't do all like the syndicating and apartment operating, I probably may maybe still be there, like free coffee, free flushes at work, you know. I mean, there's some good things about it, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, there's always I guess pros and cons with everything. So with that, Lane, I know you said you did your first rental property in 2009 and then obviously worked your way up. Do you remember either very specifically or even vaguely when your last W-2 workday was?
I think it was somewhere around 2018. It was,
Okay.
oh, actually, no, I know when it is because it was like the month before I got married.
Oh, okay.
And then I had health insurance,
Okay.
right? So I think that was 2019 is
Gotcha.
my, so
So
I remember the last day. Yeah, so the last day of that work, I mean, I didn't tell anybody. I just left. I just grabbed all my
oh,
stuff and left. I stayed late on Friday and
okay.
just picked up my stuff and gone because I didn't, I mean, people are like, people gossip and people don't understand the world that we live in, right? Where
Mhm.
you can buy rental properties. You know, like if people heard that I had more than one rental property, they'll probably think, my goodness, Lane, you're being irresponsible. What are you
Yeah.
doing? Right.
Real
Well,
estate's
good.
risky. Why are you doing
Yeah.
that?
Well, shoot, I had 11 at that time and a few
Yeah.
apartment buildings, you know, like that people just don't understand. And then I didn't want to tell anybody because that whole crabs in a bucket theory, right? Like really there's no different than from me and them. We're the same DNA. We kind of come from the same place, same freaking job, right?
Mhm.
Yet I'm able to work at something, buy rentals. Yeah, sure, it takes time and a little bit of energy to do it as a side gig. But for some people, it's like they get really upset and angry to see somebody cut from their same cloth transcend and hit success and go financially free before their
Mhm.
eyes. That I just wanted to have that narrative out there. And I told the people that I do know, I was like, hey, if people ask, just tell them I went crazy. That's probably going to be easier for them to understand
Yeah.
than like, Lane was buying rental properties prudently over the last decade, and he slowly grew it up so his passive income exceeded his monthly expenses. You
Exactly.
know,
Yeah, and for some people, like you said, that's just such a foreign language. It's like, well, why aren't you working at this, like you said, a government job? It's a great gig and benefits, et cetera, et cetera. But, I think all of us entrepreneurs, it's like, we want, time freedom. We don't want to be babysat, basically.
right? So there are two kind of funny stories that happened. That kind of scared me that to make me leave. First was like I just chilling in my cubicle, minding my own business, my two computers up, right? My work one and then the real work one up. And I heard like how like some guys like they had their phones and then they forget to turn off the volume or they press the wrong button and you
Oh,
hear like this next on Sports Center, come up.
yeah. It's like,
I
oh,
heard
that must be
like
work related.
yeah, and everybody knows and everybody laughs because they all do it, right?
Yeah.
But I heard like that I have my stupid theme song for my podcast, right? This is the story about a dude named Lane, right? And then I heard it, and I was like, oh, F, like um, and then it was like some like quiet guy in the corner that I'd never talked to in my life.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, all right, the days are numbered. And then like that last week, while I was doing the fire extinguisher diagram thing on PowerPoint, playing
Mhm.
around with clip art with that, um, somebody like came to like audit something from like the big corporate higher up, and like my job was to like create SOPs, which is kind of like what I do today, in my company, right? A lot of SOPs so the
Mhm.
staff can follow it, right? And I like I just such a bad employee. Like I just went Control F and replaced the other like facility's name with our name.
Okay.
And then like this person is pretty smart, no dummy, right? Um, and they're like, dude, you just changed the name. Like you
Yeah.
didn't change anything in the document. And I know like now Microsoft Word is pretty sophisticated where like you can compare track changes, right? You can compare
Yeah.
this document and that doc. It doesn't always work if you have, I probably should have been smart and changed like a spacing in the front so it's totally ear trackable to the, the common eye, right?
Yeah.
But I wasn't. I was too lazy. I just did it the easy, lazy way, and I just Control F and changed like the name of the facility, and I just copied the whole document. And then the person who like did that and kind of caught it, and then there's like, dude, you didn't do anything. Like, and it's like kind of one of those things where it's like, I already kind of knew I was gonna leave already.
Yeah, you're checked
And
out.
yeah, no, I mean, I was more than that. I was checked out. I've been checked out for years, right? But I was like, and like, should it be this week or like, should I take my vacation first and then do it the 21? Like it
Sure.
was kind of that point already. And I was just like, I don't know, like you got me. I was like, and I was kind of thinking to myself, dang it, Lang, are you that lazy? You couldn't at least change the few spaces at the top of the
Yeah.
document so the track changes wouldn't be discoverable. Like at least try and cover your tracks somewhat. Are you that lazy? You know, but that that's the other story.
Gotcha. Yeah, funny. So, now, Lane, you had mentioned before, obviously, especially with your last job, you did, like the people. It was a, good gig. You had already left the toxic work environment in the private sector, going in the public. But since 2019, with that changeover, what's been the best thing, or maybe the greatest thing, since then on your journey leaving the W-2, or like been the biggest impact on your life?
Well, I mean we've syndicated over $2.1 billion of assets, like 60
Wow.
something apartment buildings. I mean, that wouldn't have been I mean, like shortly after leaving, I was like things really started to pick up. And then with the pandemic happening, a lot of peak competitors couldn't buy apartments, but we were able to. So we really stepped into that limelight,
Okay.
got a lot of good broker deal flow, and then kind of pushed from over $1 billion in assets. And then we started to hire the team. If I wouldn't have been, out of the day job, I wouldn't have been able to have the sales up to catch the trade wins. That was kind of
Hmm.
my moment, I feel like. But like as much as like screw the W-2, like still think most people should stay in the W-2 is,
Hmm.
not many people have entrepreneurial skills. And
Yeah.
the most important thing is like luck,
Yeah.
right? Unless you have an element of luck, I would say luck is most of it. Unless you have some kind of like clear thing that you do well and you're plugged into the right niche, your business will never go anywhere. And you know, that said, passive investing, buying a
Mhm.
handful of rentals, that's not a real business in my opinion, right? That's a side gig. And I
Sure.
think most people should stay on that track of keeping the side gig, keeping
Yeah.
that job that you have, and then at some point titrating down the job, and kind of sailing off in the sunset whenever you'd like, or trying to do exactly what I did, right? Try and find jobs that are easier where you like the
Yeah.
people you work with, and kind of go down that road. um yeah, I mean, like things just kind of picked up, and like, yeah, like I am, I'm not the story right now where it's all like easy and sunshines and rainbows. Like I stepped into the new rat race, right?
Hmm.
Business owners, and it's even more busier. Like I don't have, yeah, I wake up a little bit later, but I work more now
Yep.
than I ever had before. Um, but I think my problem too now is like I interact with a lot higher net worth people with have
Hmm.
higher horizons, and that doesn't do good for my happiness and my goals. In essence, it was kind of cool to be the big fish or the big wallet in the W-2 land, where
Yep.
everybody is just all they're happy about is getting retirement by the age of whatever.
Hmm.
When you bust out of that, there is no limit. And now if you're not, and I that's something I personally struggle with is, you know, there are kind of no limits to like how much money you can create, and this you can delay gratify forever. It's kind of
Hmm.
my struggle.
Yeah. So, on that note, Lane, and you're well, everyone's situation is a little bit different, but for someone out there listening to this, maybe they're in a toxic work environment, or maybe they're just kind of so in their job, but they just kind of think, well, maybe there is something more out there. I can become an entrepreneur, I can expand my business, etc. But for whatever reason, they just feel stuck in their job, healthcare benefits, the pension, the security, take your pick. What words of encouragement would you give them to maybe take that leap of faith so that they can say screw the W-2?
Yeah, I think, people aren't really, I think more times than not, we sell this vision of getting out of your W-2, right? But I think consider, or at least have the intermediate goal of, and this is what money does. Money buys freedom. If
Yep.
once you can get to a point where your passive investments make a few $1,000s a month, or five
Yep.
thousand dollars a month, or half, or majority of your monthly burn rate,
Hmm.
then at that point, yeah, you're still sitting in the same seat in the job, but the mindset has totally changed. And I
Right.
see this with a lot of folks, like, we start to build their portfolio and we're kind of looking between, and more long-term investments where there's no cash flow, like developments, and more cash flow today type of stuff. Yeah, lower return, lower risk, like kind of like preferred equity type of investments. And just using those two, the dichotomy of those two types of investments, very different return profiles. For most people, they have their day jobs. They're putting
Yep.
food on the table, um, in excess. And in theory, they should just throw everything into deals or investments that are more equity growth and long-term focus with no cash flow in any near term. But that's kind of where, like, I can kind of recognize it sometimes, where when a guy's pressing and like he don't like the job, sometimes it is good to kind of book that theoretical prescription and get into investments that are more cash flow today.
Mm.
And at that point, you just titrate it up, put $100,000 in to get $1,000, or yeah, $1 million in to get $100,000 a year, or that's about 10 grand a month, right? Like,
Right.
um, you know, and then if that's not enough, do a little bit more, right? But there's a certain set point, and it's usually around like 3,000. Like that was for me, like $3,000 a month to
Mhm.
maybe $6,000 a month, probably adjusted with inflation because that was a long
Sure.
time ago, 2015. Um, but yeah, somewhere between that 5,000 amount level, I think try get there in terms of your passive investments first, and
Okay.
then and then that may do the trick. That it may be like, your vision has kind of changed. Like, yeah, this my boss is an a-hole. Nobody, these coworkers are idiots, drive me crazy. But you know what? If at any point it gets too bad, I just press this button and I'm out
Mm.
of here. Peace out.
Yeah. Think of
It,
that
it,
old commercial that hit the big red button. That was easy button.
yeah, yeah. But if you don't have the red button, man, you're pressing, right?
Yep.
You're stressed out. But as soon as you got that button there, things change. And yeah, you probably never press a button.
Hmm. But at least you have the option there and
Right,
can hit it basically. So, all right.
right.
Well, as we close this out, Lane, and again, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to share your story with my listeners. I've started to call this the hashtag unscrewed moment. If there's anything you want to share, new projects, 2023 and beyond, or even your website, podcast, and how others can reach out and find out what you're investing in.
Yeah, podcasts, simplepassivecashflow.com. I'm working on my second book.
Oh wow.
And yeah, I mean, as far as like on the operation side, continuing to look at deals, with interest rates high, we've kind of pulled back on the multifamily
Yeah.
apartment stuff. I just can't make deals work these days at these
Yeah.
interest rates. So we're focusing more on the development side because, most
Okay.
of our investors, they don't, if you think about it, like you put 100 grand into a deal and you got like 4 to 6% cash flow paid quarterly. Seriously, is that changing anybody's life?
Right.
I mean, the only reason you do that is because your wife is like killing you because you're like, what happened to 100 grand? What did you get anything back for it? Like, but the cash flow distributions are peddly. And once you've been investing for a few years, like it's insignificant, and it's probably better just to get a higher equity multiplier at the
Yeah.
end. But then we also do like preferred equity these days, which sits on top of the common equity. Lower return, but this is something that I learned from higher net worth investors. Like why these guys would drop like $4 or $5 million checks into our projects, and they would take a lower return in exchange for a different placement on the capital stack. And for me,
Ah.
for a while, I was like, why the heck are you doing that? Like give me make more money, but
Right.
that's how higher net worth people think, right? And that's something I'm always kind of like trying to climb that ladder, and or I call it the wealth elevator.
Hmm.
At the higher you go up, the next you see what other people do, and that's kind of what I encourage for everybody, right? Like, but it's hard when you're stuck in the W-2 world because you
Hmm.
see everybody doing the 401k, buying a house to live in,
Yeah.
trying to sharp do their social security, that type of stuff. And
Yeah, it can be, and hence the rat race that so many people get stuck in, and there's definitely a different route beyond that. So,
right, right,
but
exactly.
all right. So yeah, for all my listeners out there, be sure to check out Lane's website, simplepassivecashflow.com, also his podcast, and then maybe by the time this drops, your second book will be out.
That won't happen. I'm
Oh,
taking it
okay, all
so
right.
long on
So
that.
so we should
Yeah,
hold
yeah,
off on publishing.
yeah. Yeah, that's my side gig, is writing those
Gotcha.
things.
Well, eventually, second book will be out. So all
Yeah,
right.
eventually. Yeah,
All right.
yeah. We'll call it the wealth elevator. That's what we're calling it.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, with that, Lane, thanks again for your time. It's been a pleasure to have you on, and wish you all the best of luck in 2023 and beyond.
Thanks, Sean.